Here we are in Auckland, New Zealand. Isaac Savage at GladrapChannel, here with the man himself, former champ, manager, talent scout. What next? I can't name all the titles you have yet. Welcome aboard, Eddy Tongalahi.
Good to be here, bro. It's good to be back home. Yeah, thank you.
Sitting here now in Auckland, New Zealand, after all the places you've travelled, you know, how surreal or odd is it being back home after all the places you visit around the world?
Surreal. It's well, I can say is, you know, I did a almost like a 28-year fight career as a professional. You know, I left home when I was 16, and been fighting overseas quite a lot. Hardly any fights here. I only came home to defend my titles back in the day. But you know, I've seen the world at an early stage of my career fighting. But this time I went over the same places where I started my professional career in Asia, and basically just doing a whole different role for a big fight organization.
You just mentioned the 28-year period. I mean, I'm not going to try to guess how old you are, but just going back to that, what got you started? I mean, we always like to talk about how the journey started. What actually got you into martial arts kickboxing on this journey?
Well, funny that. Well, our dad. Well, I come from a big family, and we kind of see it as a fighting family almost, because my dad was a boxer in his younger days, also playing hardcore rugby. He constantly got into fights all the time during the game. So through the years, you know, we'd sort of, for me, watching a lot of Bruce Lee movies, and you know, I was taken more about martial arts than I was actually just boxing. So that was kind of my direction. I wanted to always wanted to try martial arts.
And what was the first gym that you rolled into or stepped foot in?
Oh, the first gym was I studied all sorts of martial arts back in the day. I started off with Judokan karate, did judo as well, jiu-jitsu, was weird. But then I was out in New Lynn. I remember my brother sort of taking me into a kung fu club back in the day. I was only like 10 years old. My oldest brother, you come check out this club. So we went in. It was on Albert Street in the city, and that's Liga. That was where Philip Lam was based back in the day. And you know, being so young, I didn't sort of register, you know, who's who and what was what. But it was not till sort of later on, I was about 12, 13 years old, that you know, I went back into the gym again, but it was at a different venue, and then kind of lost track of that. I was doing other martial arts, and then I was about 15 years old. I was out in New Lynn, and I was doing a course, studying a course out there, and I walked into this gym, and I heard all this noise going on upstairs, and I checked it out, and I was like, whoa, hey. Philip Lam came over and goes, hello. I said, oh, hi. And he goes, and that's pretty much I walked into there, started training the same afternoon, the evening, and I've been there ever since.
Who was actually there too? Some of the legends there back then when you started?
Yeah, they weren't training at the same club, because they all had their own, you know, gyms. But it was always Friday night. Was like all the seniors used to come over and was sparring and prepare for fights for shows, you know, for shows. And that's when I first saw Lolo and Wayne and some of the old school, you know, fighters back in the day. You know, they're not around anymore, but you know, that was the roots.
Any of the Cephals?
Yeah. No.
Anger?
So Ray Cephals, me and Ray were friends back in the day, like through the door, working as a doorman.
Yeah.
But you know, he didn't really start into Liga until about 5 years later. I started.
Wow!
Yeah.
So you were there 5 years before Ray Cephal.
Yeah. So I was the second. I would have been the second generation after Wayne and Lolo. Yeah. Me and Jojo Tiger Jojo,
yes,
the Filipino world champion, our first world champion we ever had in Muay Thai. Yeah.
And did Shane Chopper Chapman come into the piece a bit later as well?
Yeah, Chopper came in a little bit later. It's funny, he was my student at first. I was out surfing one day, and that's how I met him. He was a boogie boarder and paddled over, and you know, he knew me, but I didn't know him. It was like, oh, you're Eddy Tongalahi, aren't you? And, you know, he's this kid, you know. I didn't know who he was, and then all day out on the surf. He was like paddling up next to me. He was trying to talk to me and stuff, and said, I want to train under you. I want you to teach me and stuff like this. And and I thought, man, he's this kid. He knew me, but I didn't know him. Yeah. But I said to him, if you turn up at this time on Monday, and I'll train you. But if you're not there,
Going back to that, can you we met with Jason Suddy a few months back, and obviously you've met and know him very well. What was it like for your first fight? Did you want to run out? Did you really want to get into the ring? I mean, what was going through your mind before your first fight?
Oh, my first fight, I must have prepared about 3 months for it. I remember training really hard for this fight, and it was the same night Lolo was fighting Pathai. But earlier before that, a year before that, I was fighting in Liga. We were traveling all over New Zealand, fighting in open full contact competitions. So I kind of started off my foundation of open full contact then, before I got in the ring.
So when you say open full contact, what does that mean?
Oh, it was like every style was there, and they put on the boxing gloves, and it basically was just kickboxing on an open floor.
No padding, head kicks, punches.
Yeah. So the gloves, I think it would have been like 8-ounce gloves back in the day, or 8 and 10-ounce gloves. But we were up against all different type of style martial arts.
No weights as well.
No weights. There was no weigh in or anything. It was just kind of.
So your first fight, did you just go in for the kill? Were you nervous? What was your first instinct?
Funny you asked that. I think nerves has always been there, but I kind of broke into being hit and getting punching somebody or hitting somebody. I was fighting on the streets earlier. I was getting into trouble a lot in street fighting and stuff, and I think that taking up Muay Thai at the time under Philip Lam sort of helped me disciplined a lot more. As a fighter.
And going back to that, what would you say one of your hardest fights was? Was it here in New Zealand? Was it overseas? Who was one of the guy that just did not go down? You hit him with everything, and he just kept coming forward, or gave you one of your best fights?
The hardest fight I had in New Zealand as a pro-am fighter would be Shane Bishop. He was around for 7 years, and a lot of the legends back in the day. I was 12 years old, and I used to go to Josephus Promotions, and I watched these guys, and I was thinking, shit, man, they are great. They are good. They're amazing to watch. But I never thought that, by the age of 15, I would be fighting them for their titles. So, I fought every single guy that held the titles back in the day. And all the Muay Thai titles used to belong to Liga fighters, and they lost them to these guys. So I was kind of like the hope of bringing these titles back, and I went after them and brought them back. But Shane Bishop was the toughest opponent I had, fighting and defending those titles. I won it the first time on a split decision, and the second time I won on an enormous decision. But defending it.
And then overseas, have you got any that
oh my gosh,
bring back any memories?
Yeah, overseas there's a lot of memories. Probably the toughest fight I ever had was against it was a Dutch guy. We were supposed to weigh in, and something happened, and there was no weigh in. And the day that I jumped on the scale, the day of the fight, I jumped on the scale, and the night before, the promoter said, okay, there's no weigh in. I was like, what? It was pretty weird. The second day of the fight, I checked my weight, and I was like around about 71 at the time, 71, 72. My opponent turns up on the day of the fight, and I'm looking at him going, man, this guy is not 70. He's not 70 kg, He was like around about 80 something. So I fought this guy, and basically I got dropped 4 times in the round, and I just wouldn't give in. I just keep getting up, and then Sifu basically just said, no, we need to throw the towel, because every time he hit me, it was like, man, I was on my knee. I was going, what the heck is going on here, Yeah. But that was the toughest fight I ever had. There was no way in. The guy was twice.
And has Philip Sifu Lam always been in your your corner for
Yeah.
your fights?
Sifu's always been there, been cornering me, also Lolo, through my early days of my career, and even when I was traveling overseas, to a stage where he was getting a bit tired of flying and traveling. So most of my fights, I was either going, Lolo was there to assist in the corners, or I had different cornermen, or I was just corner myself and had a water boy.
Wow. Looking at Sifu, he's a legend in the kickboxing of New Zealand. What do you think it is about him? Is it training technique? Has he got that ability to find athletes or bring out the best in them? Because so far he's got an amazing track record. And is that how you felt for you when he trained you? That he sort of tapped into some sort of inner ability that you didn't know you had?
Yeah, Sifu's had a lot of history in martial arts, going back to his earlier days. He used to fight too, so in Hong Kong a lot. So a trainer and a fighter, have to connect in a very, what do you call it, positive and there's a connection.
Yeah.
I don't know really how to explain it, but I know Sifu used to say things to me, and I used to click onto it. I used to understand what he was talking about. So in many ways, even though he was my trainer, he was also my mentor.
Well, it's great that he remembered you all those years later, because I've ran into him a couple of times, and I don't know if he recognised me or not, but he certainly recognises you guys when he sees you, and maybe it's that connection, that bond you have. I mean, he's produced so many champs, himself, Chopper, all the League R guys now, up on Dominion Road. That's probably the later gen, but you're one of the pioneers for kickboxing here in New Zealand.
Long time ago, it was funny because I was flicking through some old photos out of the storage, and I was just going, oh my God. I was just laughing at myself, some of the real geeky photos, back in the day. But yeah, no, he has a knowledge and wisdom.
And having that background, do you still keep... I've seen a couple of your videos online of you training the guys in China. Obviously, maybe the six-pack's still not there, but you're still in shape. You're still keeping fit. I know mine isn't, but you still look like you're keeping fit, and you like to sort of jump in and give them a one too.
Since I retired, my last fight when I was 40, and I thought to myself, no, we're gonna have a big break from this. I'm not even gonna hit the punching bag. I'm not even going to, seriously, I haven't done any pad work or nothing since that last fight. Then when I went to China, it was the same thing. I don't even hit the bag or the pads or anything. I just jump in and have a sparring with a lot of my students, since I've been there, it's 5 years now, all I've done there is just sparring, running, swimming, just keeping myself in shape, so I can do my job.
Is there a reason why you don't hit the pad? Why will you get an itch and want to fight again?
You're right.
Is that why?
That's true, man. That's true. It took me a long time to really get it out of my system.
But it's a bit of a buzz, right? When you go out, what else gives you a bit of buzz than maybe jumping on your bike or jumping out of a plane?
Racing bikes I have a lot of extreme sport passions, and riding bikes is, and surfing is probably the closest thing I could ever come compared to.
But how good is it too, being a former fighter and then yourself being a coach, to see some guys going to win world champs like the likes of Shane, Chopper and others? Is that the same or just as good a feeling as winning yourself when you coach others to go on to win world titles?
It is, because the level that I kind of felt like I finished at was more. I wish I could have gone further, but due to injuries and stuff like that quite early, kind of restricted me from continuing to fight at a more higher level again. But to work with Chopper, from really early stages and see him climb in a short time to just go boom, into K1 and then winning all these WMC Muay Thai titles and stuff. That's a huge accomplishment because, I felt like I accomplished something too, just watching, fighters like himself achieving like that, Yeah,
I sort of grew up in the era when he was on the come up with, or the was it Blitz or one of the other martial arts magazines,
Blitz, international kickboxer. Yeah,
and he was certainly one to reckon with him, and Sully at the time.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to the likes of Japan? Or for your
I had
career?
a lot of fight offers to Japan, but I don't know. It just never really sort of happened. I spent probably most of my career fighting here, Australia, and Asia most of the time. Yeah, and Hong Kong. Hong Kong was like, it was kind of like heart of, how K1 is in Japan. Hong Kong was the place to be for Muay Thai because they were paying a lot of good money there.
And in saying that, Hong Kong had that resurgence. We're seeing a lot of MMA these days, and obviously boxing's always been around. What are your thoughts on kickboxing, where it stands with these major sports? Do you think it's plateauing, declining, or still on the rise? Because MMA fighters obviously need that kickboxing striking.
Yeah. Well, it's even though MMA is growing, it has grown huge. Muay Thai and kickboxing, it's always been the foundation of striking. And even in China now, it's the biggest followed TV fight shows. Is kickboxing. Muay Thai doesn't have a very large following in China. Yep. Reason why is because the market is basically based around kickboxing. The fans prefer something a lot faster striking, and not Muay Thai, which is get that slow build up to it. But the K1 there is huge in China. Yeah.
Would you say, he's becoming a household name, Israel Adesanya? He did a bit of a circuit in China, didn't he? Were you sort of behind that, or did you?
No, I was here at the time running my gyms when Izzy went over. There was a few other boys that went over. I think Brad Rattal was there for a short time, but Izzy and Blood Diamond were there, and they spent 2 years there. They left. They left here as growing professionals. They went there and basically ended up coming back complete. They had so many fights there and building their experience, and then to come back here and just kind of I would say probably just kind of clean up the
exactly.
The level,
I saw Blood Diamond fight, and he came back after China. And he fought the best of the best in New Zealand, but it wasn't even a competition. He blitzed everybody in that comp. And Israel, from what I've heard him say, he was having a fight a month, which some guys boxing MMA have 2-3 a year max. So kickboxing's almost it's the hardcore version of combat sports, isn't it?
Yeah, China, they got the resources of fighters. They got so many shows. You'll be looking at like 7 shows in one weekend. In different parts of the country. So, working there is like, man, is a dream. It's a dream for me.
And where were you when Brad Riddell fought the Monk? Were you here? Or
I was here.
There?
I was here. I was here when I first saw that. And I later on, when I went there the year after as a coach, I ended up coaching the Monk.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, for a short period of time though.
No sparring.
Yeah, I did. I sparred.
How was that chin? It's pretty solid, isn't it?
Dude, he's a hardcore guy. Nobody in camp at the time when I was there coaching, nobody in camp wanted to spar him because there is no medium for him. He doesn't tap or doesn't. Everything he throws is solid, even at sparring. So all the students, even all the elite guys, wouldn't spar him. They were like, as soon as sparring started, they said, glove up, everybody. He was like.
Well, I remember him taking some of Brad Riddell's hardest shots and didn't go down. But what's he like out of the ring? Does he speak?
Yeah, he speaks
English?
a little English.
Yeah.
I tell you what, when he's out of the ring, he's one of the most nicest guys.
Yeah.
A lot of people, don't really get to know him personally, but I got to talk to him a lot.
What's his name? Sorry, because I'm just referring to him as the Monk. But what's his? That's it. Yilong.
Yeah. So he's a really genuine. Just most polite, respectful guy,
And superstar in China, right?
Yeah, he's the most high-paid guy there.
when he came here, I was even like, wow, I was stoked to meet him. He did a kata or a form of Shaolin Kung Fu version, and then Sifu did it as well. And for whatever his age, I'm not going to throw it out there of how old I think he is. He's still super sharp.
Yeah. Yeah,
the
he
way
steals the
he
show.
performed.
Yeah, that blew me away that evening when Sifu did the Liga version of Kung Fu. That was like, I kind of had tears coming out of my eyes when I was watching it. I was like,
He looked like he'd still kick ass. Like,
Yeah, right.
I feel sorry for anyone that tried to mug him on the street because they're going to get ripped apart, right?
yeah.
Someone in New Zealand that underestimates him. And that night too, was that a live feed to China,
Yeah.
that WLF show?
Yeah.
One thing too with yourself and Sifu is that when he does those China vs New Zealand cards, he never makes it easy for the Kiwi fighters, eh?
No.
They're always so well matched.
Like I said, the Chinese level is very high. I would say that Chinese kickboxing is probably ranked about second best in the world right now. Yeah, and if they keep going that way, you never know, the table might turn. China will become the capital of
True.
combat sports because it's looking that way.
And based on where you're at now and you living there, how what's it like there? Kiwi, Tongan living in China, are they good to you?
Yeah, they are good to me. Yeah, they it's one thing to go over as a foreigner, but the other is learning to have some sort of knowledge of the Chinese culture. And I'm glad that the early stages of my career being with Sifu, he has shared that part of his Chinese heritage and culture with me, and what the Chinese people are, and how they live and how they eat. So going over there, like even my younger days as a fighter, I got to experience it, got to travel through China, and then by going back this time around, it was like, it's almost like it was home. It felt like home to me. I fit in quite well.
Is there anything when you first got there that was odd, but now you're used to, or you do, or you miss when you come here about China?
The only thing I really miss, like home, it's probably just eating normal foreign Chinese, New Zealand food,
like burgers or roast,
burgers,
fish and
steaks, and
chips.
roast.
Yeah.
Since I've been here, I had a chicken roast the other night. I had some steak, and so I was like, I've just been kind of like making up for lost time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Where do you get that? Where do you get that in China or close to Macau?
Well, in China, it's not easy to find foreign food, even though it's there.
Really? Okay.
There are foreign restaurants there, all types of different cultures, but it's kind of like trying to find a needle in a haystack. And I okay. Here's an example. I was like trying to get a cup of coffee. Like real coffee.
Yeah.
Okay. And the only places that makes anything near real coffee is like Starbucks.
Yeah.
And Starbucks, there's so many Starbucks chains there. So I ended up like Googling to find Starbucks at this whole little town that I was coaching a contract at this club. And it took me 10 kilometers. I walked 10 kilometers to find Starbucks.
And some people don't even call Starbucks real coffee. The real coffee connoisseurs call them like milkshakes. And,
So the closest thing to having really foreign coffee is Starbucks. So you go to a Starbucks there, you see foreigners.
But the thing is too, with your lifestyle now, this is it for you. This is how you operate, right? You can just sit around and do nothing. You you love this lifestyle, right? A to B, moving at a high octane pace. It's just who you are, right?
I'm always been a up and get go kind of guy, everything that I've achieved in my career it's always been about chasing goals, seeing how far I can go in it and see what I can achieve at the time,
And do you think that started, because I always like to ask what are people's motivations, and do you think it just stemmed from a young age when you started fighting grown men, full on rumbles to get that title and keep aiming for that? Have you always had it within you, or was it developed too from?
No, it was developed from fighting. Also developed, I came from a pretty tough upbringing though, sort of like, there wasn't a lot of motivation there or encouragement to do well at school or anything. So, everything I got to thank is for Sifu, from Sifu.
So when you say tough, was it like, did you grow up this part of Auckland? Like whereabouts?
Yeah, I was out west.
West? So you're Westie? Or
I wouldn't say I was
Westie?
kind of like more central west,
Okay.
Yeah, Mount Talbot, going to Mount Grammar. So, I grew up on the street where we constantly fought with our neighbours.
Wow.
With all the boys in our neighbourhood.
Just bare knuckle.
It was pretty much like, I come from a big family of 7 brothers. So
Oh, okay.
our street was constantly like, we had fist fights.
Where are you situated in that? Are you oldest, youngest?
The fourth oldest in the
Damn.
children. Yeah.
Okay. So who was the toughest out of your brothers?
Oh, crazy. I think we are kind of pretty much all kind of leveled out.
Wow. Okay.
But I'm the one.
But when you got the belts,
yeah,
like,
I'm the one that kind of stuck it out in the fight game for made a career of it and travel the world and see places, But yeah, no, definitely was a tough upbringing, but to be able to have that drive to continue chasing goals and achieving it, it's all from the from the motivation that Sifu installed. So
it's set up an amazing platform, and it just goes to show now, like, because you were here for a bit and now you're overseas, and that's what I was going to say is, like, what next? I mean, I know you've got so many things going on, but I mean, did I even see a book on the cards?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? Like, where do we start? What's moving forward?
I kind of been been putting pen to paper probably for the last 10 years, and and then being so busy and stuff, I haven't had time to kind of keep notes, so I just kind of tagged along as I went. So it wasn't until last year I sort of got motivated to sort of like I'm getting older, I'm achieving a lot more in my career, so I thought maybe I'll try and finish off my book and have it done by next year.
Do you feel too, as you get older, you get I guess more chilled out, but more clear about what you want to do, what you want to achieve? You're more patient with your thoughts?
Yes. Yeah, no, funny that, because when I left here, I was I don't know what it is, but it's like fully stressed.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is weird, but I think it's more the fact we constantly have to work, turning over a 9-to-5 job, and then keep constantly paying bills and stuff like that. So I just felt like I was like stuck, and struggling at the time, even though I had my gyms and stuff like that. I was training top fighters, and life could be any better than what I had then. But to get offered the job to go as an international coach to China, that opened up the door for other opportunities, So
how did that happen? Did someone through Sifu, or did someone?
No, it was through Sifu.
Did he just make it happen?
Yeah, no, it was through Sifu. His name also, there was a bit of history there about me when I was fighting in Asia. So a lot of that kind of backtrack back to him. Is it, where's this guy? Is he coaching? I said, yeah, I'm coaching. So he offered me to go to China, the job, and I kind of turned it down the first time he asked, because I didn't want to leave my son.
Yeah.
He was still quite young, and he asked me again. It was not till 6 months later, and still wasn't ready to leave. And then the third time came by, and I set my son down. I asked him, and he was the one who was going to let me go.
Okay.
It was all about my boy. I just wasn't ready to leave him. He was still quite young, and I want to be home as a dad.
How old is he now?
He's 14 now, and.
Do you mind if he kickboxes or rides bikes or that sort of crazy stuff?
Ever since he was a young boy, I just have a hard time seeing him fighting.
Wow.
Yeah, I just want him to maybe try other things.
And does he do other things, or what's it? Does he enjoy sports, or is he more creative?
Yeah, it was funny because I introduced him to every other sport that I've done,
but
through.
Okay.
Yeah, and I trained him in kickboxing. He's a natural. He's a pure natural. He just blew me away. First time ever. He came in. I was just shocked that, I just felt like, man, I need to either stop teaching him or he's gonna get hooked on it.
Like father, like son.
Yeah, and then I just, from that, and I thought, no, I'm gonna give him other opportunities, open up other doors for other sports. So I coached him how to motocross and teach him how to ride bikes, and then surfing and everything that I've done before. And then he's hooked on all these extreme sports, and but he hasn't mentioned about fighting, so which is a good thing.
So you keep it like that.
Yeah.
Well, even watching you move on the pads though when you're sparring, you still got it. It doesn't leave, eh? It's like riding a bike or something. You just even watching those videos recently, you look super quick, bit aggressive. Look like you almost wanted to still get in there and do it.
Yeah, that's the thing though. I have to remind myself all the time how old I am, and and how many injuries I have, because I can't fool myself like before. It was an addiction, even though I had the injuries, and that's kind of what forced me to sort of, kind of backed off a little bit of fighting because, I was too many injuries.
What are those injuries? Is it to the knees, the back?
My knee popped out in one of my world title fight many years ago, and that hasn't come right, and it comes and goes. And then my fractured ankle, my broken foot, dislocated elbow 3 times, and here 9 broken noses, fractured cheekbone here that's punctured, and then my eye was hanging out during that period, and every time when
was that from a fight?
Yeah, that's from Muay Thai, and then every time I look out, and my eye kind of cheats on me. It's almost like it zooms out and zooms in, and the opponent could be further away, and it feels like he's right in my face. So it kind of plays a lot of tricks on me. It's just the nerves are just not. It doesn't feel good.
Mate, when you tell me about those injuries, I can see why you don't want to fight. But like I said, it never leaves. What do you do though to get a buzz still from training? Is it the sparring? Do you do other sports? Meditate?
Yeah. I took up. Well, I met a young lady over in China, after my second year there, and not knowing she was a extremist,
crazier than you,
extremist, like marathon runner.
Oh man!
And my first date was basically my first date with her was actually a run.
When we say extreme marathon, so most people think of the marathon 40K. What's an extreme marathon?
Extreme, we're running ultra marathons.
Like what, 100 or something?
She's doing her first 100 ultra marathon in Hong Kong as one of the world ranked.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
have you tried it? Or was it? Do you want to?
I'm not too keen to try it, but I know that maybe later on in time, if I do some proper training for it, I probably would. But we've been running ultra marathons since for the last 3 years together.
Is it hard? Because I was thinking, right, as a fighter, you don't mind short-term pain. You don't mind pain for 6, 8, 12 minutes, but pain for like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, mate. Yeah,
you got to put your mind somewhere else.
I do. Like, this is where I felt like what's helped me through my ultra runs, competitions and stuff was more the fact that I had that professional experience from fighting, to drive past that pain barrier, and training, like preparation for it, running and strength training and and endurance training, for ultra, and then actually doing it and just going halfway through it, like done 30 Ks, and I'm going, man, that just feels like fighting, and you basically just pushing past that pain barrier, because you if your mind switches off, your whole body switches off. You just
True.
You're like stopping a car. I'm not going anymore. I'm running out of gas. So so that's all I've kind of been doing.
That's an awesome switch though, because some people couldn't or wouldn't do it. They prefer just that short-term pain gain. They don't like that duration, that marathon.
Do you know? Do you know one of the old fighters? Hamish. Johnson.
Yeah.
Well, I've been chatting to him, and he's full on ultra running.
Is he?
He is. So he's doing his 100 kilometers coming up soon.
100.
So, yeah. I tell you what, it's probably one of the best. For me, my knees are not the best, but I'm just trying to push through it, just try and get as many ultras in as I can.
And how good is it too to I guess be with someone else or share your time with someone else that's kind of just as crazy as you, right, in a different way?
Yeah, all her friends say that we have a lot in common, and even though our language barrier is not best because she doesn't speak fluent English, but we can talk English together. I taught her how to speak English.
Wow.
But she kind of gave up teaching me Chinese because I keep pronouncing everything so wrong. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah,
so where is she now? She back home, and you're probably looking forward to going back and seeing her soon, right?
She's preparing for the 100. It's only in January. So she's done all the endurance, all the fitness, the running and stuff. And then when I return, I'm basically coaching her as well.
Wow.
So do the strength work and stuff like that for her. Yeah, so prepare for that.
And she's obviously used to your lifestyle. She accommodates that, and she's probably busy too, right?
It wasn't so easy in the beginning though. She was wondering why I traveled, why I constantly left home and go away for like 2 or 3 months. And even though when I told her like what I did for a job, she just didn't quite understand it. She's just never been exposed to combat sports or fighting, so she was a total beginner to even sing it. So to be able to educate her and that sort of things, and she started understanding what I did for a living, and I was like, wow.
But not just her too. Is it like friends, family, immigration agents when you're traveling and you say, I'm a international talent scout coach?
They just look at me like, what do you do? Yeah. It was funny because, when I got appointed as a WLF scout agent for finding foreign fighters, foreign talents, it wasn't even called that. They didn't have a name for it. They just kind of called me like, Eddy, do this for us,
Yeah,
and I knew what my role is. So I just kind of had to find a title for it, and I did some research over on the internet. And when I look back at all the past professional sports, like through the last 50, 60 years, they've always had scouts or coaches that were semi-retired, and they went out and they find new talents like in basketball and football and so on. Like, wow, that's exactly what I'm doing. So when I took that title, that name, and gave it to the office, this is what I'm doing. And they just like went, what is that? So I kind of had to go into details of explaining it to them,
And saying that too, when you know how you are a talent scout, like what are you looking for? Is it not just their fight style, their grit? Is there something else too that you can see that they can't see that you can try to develop? Like what makes it up for you to choose someone to be on your roster?
I've seen it a lot in many fighters I've trained through the years, in my own experience. So I'm always looking for that driven dedication, You can see there are some certain fighters that they want to go far, They may have the talent, but they lack in the training, because some of them you may be talented, but you're so lazy to train. And I've seen a lot of that in the past.
What would you prefer? Someone that's gifted naturally with the ability but lazy, or someone that's not but they work their damn ass off to get somewhere?
I prefer someone that works their ass off and achieve their goals over a talent. Yeah. Once in a blue moon, you're going to have a talent walk through the door and you go, damn, you give them an opportunity, and you would hope that...
Who's someone like that you can say is someone that is a bit of a perfect mixed hybrid?
Oh, crikey. I would say, okay, here's the thing. I would say Izzy would be an example as talent.
Yeah.
Okay? Because, when I very first saw Izzy fight, was like, this is like when he was amateur. He came up north and fought on a show as on the undercard, and I just I watched it the first round, and I thought, wow, this kid is gonna go far if he keeps at it. There was something just very talented about him. It's just the way that his ability to be able to throw kicks, and even though he was a bit of a showman, and even like when he was amateur, but but you could see there was raw talent there. It was just a matter of time development.
So you could see that natural.
It was natural.
Then.
Yeah. So I said to my boys, man, that kid's gonna go far. But I didn't. All I knew was he was from Taranaki. Well, I think it was Taranaki. I think he was from. Yeah. All I knew he was from down the line. And I saw him a year later. I was like, wow, he got more improved. But I didn't realize he was training at CKB CKB at the time. So so that's an example. There's someone very talented, but he wants to work.
So that's a good mix, right?
That's
perfect. Is there anyone you've worked with that is not as skilled but works their ass off and they've become champ just because they've just worked at it?
The person I can think of right now is one of the very own Liga, Jojo Tiger, Anger Jazz. He was in the same era as me, started the same time as me. We trained side by side with each other. And, he would tell his Sifu Solas. And this is the funniest thing. I never saw it because I was still quite young at the time, but Sifu saw it. This kid's got talent. He just kept reminding everybody, He believed in it so much that, by the time when Jojo had his first ring fight, Muay Thai fight, he was only 15 years old. And he fought an 18-year-old Clinton Simmons and took him to pieces. Nobody can believe it. It was like, wow. How many fights has this kid had?
This was his first one, was it?
But he trained hard.
Wow.
So he's another one I would say, talented, but worked hard for it.
Were you training with John Conway as well?
Yeah, I trained with John it got a few, you know.
Were you guys at the same weight back in the day or not? Did you guys get a few rounds in
I'm
together?
not sure. No, John was lighter. John was lighter than me.
He was a bit of a machine though back in the day, wasn't he?
Yeah, John, man.
Still probably goes.
We've had some great training sessions, you know. We used to run together every not every day, but, you know, when we caught up. And, you know, all the Palmoral, you know, old school boys, I used to go up there, you know, even though I was from Sifu, you know, club, you know, I used to transition back and forth, sort of sparring and preparing for fights, you know, and that was another family, you know, but even though we're from the same Liga flag, you know.
Why is it you think for such a small place, you know, obviously we've got the All Blacks, but then we've got so many good fighters over the years. Why do you think we produce such hard, great fighters? Is it, what do you reckon it is about New Zealand?
The culture, yeah. We're quite lucky because we have a very multi-culture, you know, and everybody has had that genetics in their blood, you know. I mean, we just look back at the history, man. It's like Polynesians, Maoris, you know, we're all the same, you know. We're going back yonks, over 100 years, you know. Like we come from a long path of warriors.
Yeah, true.
You know, and that continued, you know. So I believe this has a lot to do with it. The multi-mix culture, you know, of Polynesians.
That's a good point. And, you know, you being Tongan yourself, do you get behind the Red Army when they come here and play league, rugby,
dude,
that kind of thing? They just take over.
I watch them as much as I can, you know, when I get to watch, you know, live feed, if I can get, you know, past the VPN in China. But, you know, but definitely big supporter of it.
And going back to, you know, obviously fighters here, we recently saw King of the Ring. We saw Dominic Reed, Nikora Lee Kingi in the final, both from Christchurch, both from the same gym. Have you ever been in that situation? Like, if you did go through an 8-man and you did have to face your guy in the corner, you'd do it, right?
I've had a situation like that. I've had two of my boys fight on an event back. You know, it wasn't a big event, but, you know, they end up being in the finals. So, you know, I kind of like, man. You know, I hate the position of being a coach on that moment, and then having to go, man, who am I going to corner? And you know, it's like, shit, they're my boys, you know. So what I did back then was basically got two corner helpers to corner them, and I just stepped out of it, you know, to allow them to think for themselves. And I think it's kind of a league art thing in a way for us, because I've seen that happen many times before. You know, where league R fighters have fought each other, and, you know, the trainers have kind of stepped down and got, you know, assistant trainers to corner them. I think it's a real test, you know, to see two students that you've trained go toe-to-toe with each other, but then they have to think for themselves, because they come from the same stable and they learn the same skills and they train the same style.
Probably be one of the hardest things you'd have to do.
Yeah. So I can imagine how my big brother Wayne felt.
Poor Wayne.
Yeah.
But I mean, he came it's a blessing and a curse, and he became a sort of, you know, curse of his own success, because unfortunately, both guys, they didn't even start off in the same pool.
Yeah.
Or, you know, they were in
different pools,
and they ended up going to the final.
Yeah, no, they did great, man. They really deserved to be in that final, and the win was definitely worth it. And
both being so young, I mean, if you can say, would you want for them next? Do you think they should fight more in New Zealand, overseas?
I think for them, well, a little that people know in New Zealand, those two actually already fought in China, in Asia, and brought them up and fought in Hong Kong in the WLF show. So, you know, already they made their mark, you know. I think they walked away with 2 wins, I think, that night.
Wow.
Yeah.
And China too. That's
and this is on WLF show.
Yeah.
So, you know, saying that in the last King of the Ring, they both made it in the finals, you know, and I watched the fight and I took a video footage of it and I sent it by WeChat to my big boss. And I said, you remember these 2 boys? And he said to me, oh, yeah. And Big Brother Wayne, the students. I said, yeah. They're in the finals now, the 8-man. And I said, what about we bring them up next month? And he said to me, okay, done. So,
like a boss.
Yeah, and I was messaging Wayne, you know, while I was watching the fight, and left him a message and stuff and said, hey, are these boys available for 1st of December?
Damn.
But, you know, and I sent the video and the boss said, mate, get them. You know, we're basically it was all I had to do was like
Wow.
get the okay, and then it was already set. But Wayne wanted to finish up, this year.
Yeah,
The
fair
boys have
enough.
been working really hard, and they need to recover. Yeah.
And you being from New Zealand, having a strong heritage here, obviously you'll always be watching New Zealand, but is it just 24/7 for you? Are you constantly watching other markets too? Aussie, China, Russia, wherever.
Yeah.
Just seeing who is sort of coming through or creeping through that fight scene.
My job, like I said, my job is a scout. Ed plays a huge role of knowing who's out there and who's coming through and what hidden talents are actually there from a country that is probably so small you never heard of. So it's very interesting, but exciting at the same time. Finding guys that not even heard of. Like there's a young boy that I've just basically recruited as part of my agency. He's from Madagascar.
Right.
Wow.
Madagascar.
I mean, last time I ever heard of this place was in that cartoon movie.
That's the only time I've actually heard of it.
Out of all places, and this kid, and he's like, I looked at his video and I thought, man, this kid's actually got something,
You're right though. And out of all the people I talk to, there's Glory, there's Bellator, but they say WLF is the hardest one. Like, if you want to be the best kickboxer in the world, or you want to really test yourself, WLF in China is the place to do it. It's one of the hardest platforms to be champ, right?
It is. It's the hardest platform, and they don't just give away the championship titles like a Weet-Bix, kind of title.
Yeah.
And I have to say it because hey, there are so many shows out there that they have that credibility to be great, but there's far too many titles just going out. He's a champion of this, and it's like WLF is totally different. Their platform is like, man, you got to fight almost like 20 or 30 Chinese to make that ranking to even get a shot at that world title, the WLF world title.
And saying that too, is there going to be another WLF cross, reference with the live feed to China again here? Is there going to be another one
the
next time?
The WLF shows, there's so many of them now, because the thing with WLF, they're traveling. So they're touring all over the world. Every country you can think of, they want to be there. They want to be the first to put on their shows. So New Zealand is they've been coming here for I think about 6-7 years now already, and that is always going to be one of their playgrounds. To come here and put a show on. And Sifu really looks forward to that. But Sifu's quite lucky because he gets to promote 2 events from China. With WLF and Cloyo Hero, so not everybody can have that sort of And just going back to your crazy schedule, what you do, what do you like? You're still so young, you still got so much time ahead of you. What do you want to achieve and do in the next? What does it all look like in the next few years? 5 years, 10 years? All I know is 5 years ago when I left and took up the coaching job, I didn't know where I was gonna end up at. All I knew was I was going to China. I was going to go and coach the top Chinese team, and I did that. I went there, did my time, and then I came home. It was the end of the contract, and then I got a recall. But the recall was different. It wasn't going back to coach. I was actually going to Australia to help them put an event there. So I went and did that part, and that was very successful. And then while I was there, I got recall again to go back and coach. So I came home, packed up my luggage. I was in like 2 days and bolted. Went straight back to China, start that contract. So the whole time I've been there, like 3-4 years, I decided I was going to go independent after my contracts, so I can spread all over whole of China, coach and share my knowledge, and share Liga.
Wow.
With China, because there's always been Sifu's dream. He said to me like very young age, if I was still young, I would have gone back to China and share my skills with my own people. But now I'm too old now, and it's like impossible. So in a way, I'm kind of making that further step.
So in
to
some
give
ways,
back to him.
And just watching you spar that time, it feels like you're just getting started. Right,
I'm
you're just getting started.
I'm just getting started. Yeah. So I've put Liga style on the map over there. Also teaching all the Chinese what I've learned through Liga and my own, in my own version of Liga fighting, my style. And so now I've grown from not just an international coach to someone that is technical advisor and so on for most of China's top fighters. And I have elite guys flying down to train with me, and girls and stuff training with me, for their fights. And I get called to go. But the contracts are never stop. They never stop coming. They just get offered. And I'm gone to stage now where the last 4 years I'm really tired.
You might need a PA. do you have a PA?
It's not just PA, but it's more, I wish there was 10 on me.
Yeah, okay. I see
because everybody, every gym now, they're bringing over like foreign coaches, but they're not delivering what they want. Yeah.
And what's it like? This might sound a bit like a strange question, but what's it like being Eddy? As in, the constant. You see that everyone contacts you. Is it 24/7? Do you if you leave your phone down for an hour or two, and then you look back at it? Is there like 50 or 100 messages?
Yeah.
What's it like with that? What do you do? Do you turn the notifications off? Do you just look at it and then get as much as you can, and then go back to it later?
It's quite crazy, because before I met my missus. I was constantly on the phone, on the laptop. I was like, I said to my boss at the very early stage that, my job is suitable if I'm on mobile, if I'm traveling, doesn't matter where I am. If I'm coaching a contract there for 2 months, I'm constantly going to be working all the time. If I'm flying here to referee a show, if I'm going to the corner our team, it's like I'm constantly on my phone, on my laptop, constantly sending profiles to the head office for the next fight show coming up.
Yep.
Or I could be like preparing to go corner this team, and I'm flying to referee this show. I'm gonna like it's kind of like that.
So your phone's almost like your laptop. How many deals have you done on your phone?
Yeah, constantly. It's constantly on. It's constantly on. Then
even this interview, you probably got about. You probably had a couple of calls, maybe 6.
Yeah, but like I said, it's been great. To be able to do something I love. And the funny thing about it, like near the end of my fight career, I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do when I retire? The only thing I could do was like open the gym, coach. But I've been coaching the same amount of time as I've been fighting.
But this is sort of like your calling, this is what you love doing. And that's what will make it so successful. Because you're good at it and you love it, right?
I love it. And I wouldn't, if I could do this until like, I can't move anymore. Man, I'll be happy. Yeah. But the goal was, it was like, coach, get my name up there, build Liga's name, get Sifu's name back in China, Liga style, and then build my referee career, which I've done. I left here. I only done like I think it was close to about 570 matches I've refereed since like almost 27 years. Okay.
Still a bit.
So there's quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I went there, I only been there like, 2 years, and I raked up, another 600. But that's how many shows they have there.
Yeah. So many people too, right?
So many fights.
Billion.
Yeah, and I was blown away. I was like, man, I raked that up within 2 years, and I spent, 26 years building 500.
Is it just the pace, the volume over there is just different? That we can't comprehend it?
It's so many fights, so many matches. I'm constantly flying out mostly every weekend to go and referee shows. And I'll be like I'll be close to reffing like maybe 6 to close to 7 fights a night. Depending on how many in the fight card.
Wow.
And I get caught up in like double shows where one show is the day before, and the other show is the following night, and then another one is from the following night. So the whole weekend, 3 days is gone.
So when do you get a day off?
Yeah.
Does that not exist in your world?
Well, when I get a weekend, is when I crawl into my bed, and I just don't want to get out of bed for like almost a whole week.
Netflix and chill.
I was just so tired, man. But it's. I believe that all the hard work since I went there, it's done. So the goal was always to open Liga Fight Club in China, and that's not easy for foreigner to do that. Not easy. the Chinese government is very strict on a lot of stuff like this. So
and that's reality.
it's just
now.
reality of it, you know. And I would have had a gym open maybe 3 years, like early in the third year, but because of government regulations and that just
So
makes it
you're
difficult.
still
Yeah.
chasing after that goal. That's still on the hit list.
That goal is probably going to be the final.
Okay.
The big finale.
Yeah.
Because it's taken me 2 years to sort of kind of trying to get through the government side of things, and when I met my missus, she just happened to be the right person that's been dealing with the government for like yonks.
Yeah.
So she does a lot of business deal with them, and that had basically just finalized everything.
Nice.
She went into a meeting with some of the government people, and she said that she's looking for a building and she wanted to open up a fight club, and they kind of went, huh? And I said, oh, my fiance is a head coach in China, and he's very famous in China, and and one thing to another, she came home, she said to me, honey, we got a building. And I said, what?
Yes.
She said, are you joking me? I was like, I was so happy because, it took me so long just to find the right people to be able to, to
Sometimes it's
find the door.
who you know, eh?
Yeah, it's who you know in China. It's who you know.
Because if you went and they might have just turned you down, right?
Oh, dude, they turned me down the first time we went over the building, and then they said, and then my friend told me, you need to be in business with a Chinese local. So, and finding someone to go business with in China, it's kind of like, just, there's a few dodgy, characters, and I just don't want to mix with it. I just want to become legit and just run a business, and carry the Liga name. So
with that on the path, the book potentially, what next? A movie?
Mate,
I don't think you're going to stop.
Dude,
I don't think you're going to stop.
I did have a documentary, just my career. I did have a documentary, and I wanted to do something along that line of just having a camera, just reliving, those moments, those years, those days, traveling around coaching in China.
Even a weekend with Eddy, it would be awesome, right? Just following you around your life. Well, could we keep up?
It's just the whole coaching career and my refereeing career alone, and managing fighters. Those whole three put together, the schedule is crazy, and it's worth reliving those paths, because I've been to places in China I just never imagined I would ever see. Like, China is very beautiful, I'm telling you right now. If you haven't been there, people's got to go there.
Yeah.
Don't read what you hear on media. It's just bollocks. You got to go there, and you got to travel through it to be able to really see the culture.
What's the one thing you should ask for food-wise if you go there?
Rice. And the reason why I say that, because it's probably the most easiest thing to ask for, rice.
And what's your secret, mate? Like, how do you keep going? Is it just pure energy? Is it like
it's
Red
pure
Bulls
energy.
or what is it?
No, just pure energy, bro. Just pure energy, and just driven by, by success, and driven by what I know I can achieve. Chasing goals. I'm a goal freak. I've been telling people that for a long time. If I put a goal there, and I give it a time length, I'm gonna smash it. I'm just gonna smash it. So everything that I have achieved through to this time, it's all been about chasing goals, and and I saw the door opening there, and thought, I'm going after this. Next thing opened up, I'm going after that, and it's been ever since. But achieving is a whole different thing.
Well, I'm looking forward to you achieving that ultra marathon, and I'm going to ask you about it now and then.
Yeah. 6 weeks ago we did the 71, so that was a killer, bro.
That's pretty hardy. Like, most people struggle to do a half or a 40.
Yeah. That was a amazing experience, the 71. Whew. I got to see places in China I just never imagined, which is like, you just see it on the postcard, you see it in a like a promotional marketing video, for a short,
that would have been awesome.
10 seconds, Man, it's places like that, they do exist. It's really beautiful.
So what's next on the cards? Like, obviously, you're off in a few days. Where are you going, and what's the next show?
I'm flying over to Melbourne. I've just come from Melbourne.
Okay, yeah.
We just finished the WLF show in Melbourne. It was like 2 weeks ago. and come home. And then I'm going to fly back to Melbourne. I've got 2 professional fighters from my agency, my management agency,
Yep.
flying from Thailand to fight on there. And then after that, I fly back to Hong Kong, go back and prepare to start the renovations for the gym.
Wow, and we can
For
follow that
Thailand.
on your Facebook page.
Yep, you can follow my Facebook page and my GladrapChannel Fight Club page. Basically, the renovation starts 1st of December. We got about a time frame is about a month and a half.
Yep.
And then open for business end of January.
Wow.
And then I start shipping all foreign fighters over to be based in China.
And is it
Yeah.
first and foremost your roster, and then potentially open to the public?
So basically, it's going to be run as a full catered, MMA, jiu-jitsu, K1,
Okay.
Muay Thai. I'll be getting some coaches in, and we'll be running the gym as a fight club, but also open for the public as general fitness. I'm doing selections on foreign talents, foreign fighters. They're wanting to grow their career, to be based in China, full-time training, fighting. That's it.
I mean, you're saying though, this ain't a holiday. What was
ain't
if
a holiday.
GladrapChannel want to come over for a little training session? You're not going to beat us up?
Nah, man, come along and enjoy yourself. But so that's a big goal for 2019.
Nice.
Yeah, so
Launch the gym.
Yeah, basically launch the gym and basically just run it, and just I'm gonna step away from the coaching side of things next year, and just basically get trainers in, and just manage and direct.
And is there anyone that you're moulding, or you see something to you that's helping you out along the way, or there's not a second Eddy yet at this stage?
Well,
Or there's no one like you out there? I mean, is there anyone
I
This is your right-hand man?
Well, there's a couple of people that I've been working with for the last couple of years, and but they have their own lives, but it's something that I just have to look out for.
Yep.
A good team, of aiming for the same goal.
Yep.
Yeah. Everybody has a goal, but they all got to start somewhere, and sometimes if you just open the door for them to grow, you never know. They may be able to be part of your team, or they may be just to grow themselves, to find their own way, so I'm all about opening up doorways.
Yep.
Opportunities for everybody. And so far, the agency has grown so fast in the last 4 years.
Yep.
I now have over 2,000 registered foreign fighters in my agency, bigger than anybody else
That's
in
massive.
supplying anywhere in Asia. So and it's still growing. So I've ended up have to get staff and to work, to send them and take teams to those shows, so I can actually still work on my career.
Wow.
So at the moment I'm kind of buzzing because those goals were set 5 years ago, and I'm just
And it sounds like sometimes when you set a goal, or a goalpost, it just gets wider and wider,
it just gets
further and further.
wider and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And I've met a lot of good people in there. I've met a lot of good friends, and and even till now, it's still growing. And I said the missus is not too happy with me traveling so much, coaching, doing 3 months contracts all over China. So she said to me, why don't we just have you focus on the gym, run it next year, manage all your teams, and just be home. So
Run some more marathons with her.
Yeah,
What?
run some more marathons with her. It's just like I said to him, am I going to still be running marathon next year? But he said to me, no, you're going to be at the gym and I'm going to be running a marathon. So, I don't mind. We're fully supportive of each other's,
Yep.
interests. And, for me, it's just about the gym next year.
Oh, well, we're
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing
Yeah.
it. I mean, just finally for those watching out, Tonga, back home, and Hong Kong, around the world. Is there anything you want to say, even back to the missus, back to those? Everyone
man.
everyone that looks
I
up
don't
to
know,
you.
bro. It's like, like I've always said it many years ago, don't ever limit yourself. And the reason why I say that is like, it doesn't matter when you're finished fighting. Continue contributing to the sport. It could be a referee. You could be a coach. You could open a gym. You could be a promoter. It never ends because, I've dreamed about this opportunity for me for many years, and, I'm living it and doing it, and making great money overseas. And I do see new generations after me also can do this too later on and when they retire. So, you know, I say, you know, out there, you fighters, you coaches, don't ever limit yourself, man. Just keep digging deep because, you know, there is a future also in being a scout management, referee, and also international coach. And it never ends. So you can make a living out of it, make a career out of it like I am. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to following the rest of your career. All the
Oh,
best.
cheers, bro.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out.
Cheers.